spring, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the breeze is crisp and bringing in the scent of freshly blooming flowers and new beginnings. You're wanting to go to a park. You're wanting to eat fresh baked bread. You're wanting a book that's just going to entrance you. A book that's going to give you that fresh springtime feeling. A book that's really just going to make you fall in love with the whole vibe of spring. I have those books for you today. So without further ado, grab your coffee and let's get into it. So the first book that we have is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. In this book, we are following a woman who is telling her story to her children about how she came to age and the relationships she had before and the ones she didn't pursue. This book is a story within a story. It is about choices and relationships. It is about reminiscing on the past and embracing the future. If you're wanting something to compare it to, think of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo meets The Notebook. It has that essence of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because we do follow in old Hollywood and she is now grown up and is going back and telling her story. And then we also have the essence of The Notebook to where she's talking about these relationships that she did and didn't pursue and why. And also I think it's very notebooky vibes because of the scenery that it's set in, where we're in that old-timey willow tree cottage vibes, because in the present she currently lives on a cherry orchard and that's what her family does for a living. And then in the past it was on this beautiful lake called Tom Lake, and it's just describing this beautiful scenery and it makes you just feel so good afterwards, and I just absolutely loved it. And if you're also into audiobooks, you should check out the audio version of this because it is narrated by Meryl Streep and it was so good. I mean, obviously it's Meryl Streep, so it's gonna be good.
I don't feel like an icon. Most of the days I feel like I can't.
She just did such an excellent job with this, and I really was just in love with this story. Again, it's the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and The Notebook had a baby. This is the book. So fresh and so good. This book is literary fiction, which normally is an extremely big snooze fest, but this book was told so beautifully. The author is so descriptive in the sceneries and the characters. You just fall in love, and she's so good about making you feel like you're actually going back in time and reliving the past with them, as well as just embarking in the future, and it is just so good. Literally blew me out of the park. 100% recommend, especially if you're just wanting that wholesome feeling. This book's gonna give you that. So the next book that we have is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. I think it's pronounced Schwab? Shish kebab? Anyways, this book is set in, I believe, 1700 France, and I think it's classified as a historical fiction. Addie is currently betrothed to this guy who she does not want to marry, and in a haste of her emotions, she runs out in the dark and she screams to the gods for somebody to help her and let her live her life the way she wants to live it, and where she doesn't have to marry some guy who she doesn't love. And the gods of the dark do answer, and they grant her wish to where she is now immortal. She doesn't have to marry that guy. But the catch is that nobody will ever remember her. So anytime that somebody sees her face, they can talk to her, they will acknowledge her, but the second that she steps away and they can no longer see her, she completely is erased from their memory. So we're just following her in this life to where she is having these emotional experiences of wanting to live the life that she wants to live and getting to live that life, but also she doesn't have any of these emotional connections that she wants to have because, again, nobody can remember her. I absolutely love this story, and it was one of those books that really just took me into a different world. I really was in 1700 France with her. I could smell the fresh baked bread. I could hear the carriage trotting along the stone path. It gave me that French fantasy that I wanted, but then I also got brought to the modern day, and I absolutely fell in love with Addie. She is such a lovable character, and also the dark god who she made the deal with, Luke, is... I mean...
He's so hot.
You know, you'll just have to read it for yourself. It is so good, but if you're wanting a story that's just going to take you to that different place in time and is really just going to grasp your attention and where you can just love the main character, this is it. This book was so good, and for that reason, I definitely classify it as a spring read because you can just get absolutely lost in this book, and it was just so good. So the next book that we have is Someone Else's Shoes by Jojo Moyes. Now bear with me. This book for me is really hard to explain for some reason, but I'm going to do my best Just trust me, it's a good book. So we started the story following Nisha, who is an extremely wealthy housewife and has basically everything that she could ever want. And the other character that we follow is Sam, who lives a very humble lifestyle and is basically the breadwinner for her family. Her husband has just lost her job. She's not in a very good state. She's a sales representative who is struggling. But they both go to the same gym, and one day they accidentally swap bags. Nisha goes to grab her bag and gets a phone call saying that her husband is divorcing her and is cutting her off completely financially. So obviously she's very distraught after getting this phone call, so she grabs her bag hastily and runs out of the gym to go try to fix her life. On the other hand, Sam, who has a very important sales meeting, goes to grab her bag and get changed after the gym and realizes that she has grabbed Nisha's bag that looks extremely similar to her bag. And in this bag, instead of her normal black subtle heels, she has these extremely lavish Louis Vuitton super high heels that she has zero confidence to wear. But unfortunately, she does not have time to go back home and get different shoes, so she is forced to wear these shoes to the meeting. When she puts on these shoes, she realizes that she is getting completely different looks from people. People are treating her differently. And these shoes basically just give her a ton of confidence and transform who she is as a person. On the other hand, Nisha, after she realizes that she can't even get into her own house and she's freaking out in the hotel lobby, goes to change out of her gym clothes and realizes that she has some other lady's shoes. Obviously, Nisha is extremely upset whenever she figures out that this is not her gym bag, because not only are the shoes that she now has of extremely lesser value, but her husband had also said that if she would give him back the Louis Vuittons that she currently had in her gym bag, that he would give her a significant amount of money, not as much as she would like, but enough to live off comfortably and to not be on the streets, obviously. And now she has these shoes that are gonna do her no good, and she is freaking out. She goes back to the gym and she is like, hey, somebody else stole my bag. They tell her it's not our responsibility. And so she's freaking out. She decides that she's gonna find these shoes on her own, and she goes on this mad goose chase, and in the process has to live this new humble life, figure out what it is to survive on her own so that way she can get back to her son. And this story is just so beautiful because it's such a pivotal moment for both of these people. You grow with both of them in different ways. You're rooting for Sam and her newfound confidence and for her life to be on the up. And then you're rooting for Nisha also to be able to find happiness in this new lifestyle that she has. They literally have to learn what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes.
Wow. You're so funny.
In the story, their paths do cross eventually, and it is such a sisterhood, feel-good story, and I absolutely love this story. It was so funny, it was so good, it made me feel so fresh and clean. The ending was exactly what I wanted it to be, and I just loved being on this journey with these two girls and watching them grow in different ways, and it was just so beautiful and made me feel so fresh and good. I literally read this book in the beginning of 2023, and I have been thinking about this book literally since then. I think about this book at least 5 times a month.
I think about this every day. I think about this all night long.
And I hardly ever think about books after I read them, but this book was just on my mind and it's been on my mind since. I honestly don't know how I haven't read more books by this author, but it is definitely on my TBR to be reading more of her books because this book was just so good, so beautiful, and I'm so excited to read some more because this book just absolutely blew me out of the water. So I highly recommend this book if you just want a book that's just gonna give you that fresh, feel-good feeling. So the next book that we have is The Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This book is following our main character. I believe her name is pronounced Xingying. I am not Chinese, obviously, so forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but this is following our main character, Xingying, who lives with her mother on the moon. And one day they are visited by the Celestial Emperor who had exiled her mom for stealing an elixir of immortality many years ago. And she finds out from the Celestial Emperor's visit that she is actually not supposed to be born and that she is actually a secret from the Emperor and that her mom would be punished if the Emperor was to find out that she existed. So Xingying leaves the moon in order to save her mom and not be discovered by the Emperor because her powers are beginning to come to fruition.
That's what I get for trying to use big words.
And she does not want the Celestial Emperor to discover her and then her mom be even more punished. So she leaves and we're following Xingying on this journey of traveling through the Celestial Kingdom, and she's trying to figure out a way to set her mother free. It is so action-packed, it's so good. There's so many things that go on in this book, it would be hard for me to give you a basic storyline, but that's the premise of this book. If you're wanting an idea of what this book is about, think Mulan, but on steroids. I literally absolutely fell in love with this book. It's obviously a very thick boy, so be prepared for that. I don't want to scare you about its thickness because even though it's high fantasy, it is so easy to fall into this world. The world is so whimsical and beautiful. It really just has such an amazing, beautiful Chinese culture in this book that I just absolutely fell in love with. It made me appreciate Chinese culture more. It made me just want to read more about Chinese mythology. I love Greek mythology, and honestly, I guess I am just so small-minded I didn't even realize that there was a Chinese mythology. But honestly, that's like my new obsession now. I cannot wait to read the second book of this series. It is a 3-book series, I believe, but this book was so good. You're transported to literally high fantasy Mulan. I just absolutely think it was so fresh and springy. I mean, look at this cover. It literally is so beautiful, and it is absolutely what I think of whenever I think of this book. If you're wanting to get more into Chinese mythology or you just love a good whimsical story, this is the book for you. Again, I've only read this first book, but I cannot wait to read the other books. So I definitely recommend this book if you like Mulan and you're wanting some more whimsical fantasy type stories, but also is just giving you that fresh type of spring feeling. This is the book that I recommend. So the last book that we have is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This book is following main character Lucy, who is a kindergarten teacher and is currently struggling to save up enough money to be able to adopt this boy, Christopher, who she has absolutely fallen in love with. One day she is sitting in her classroom with Christopher and she gets an invitation from her favorite childhood author inviting her to come to his island and compete in a game for a chance to win a one-of-one extremely rare book that is worth a significant amount of money if she wins, and therefore she will be able to adopt Christopher. She's extremely excited, says yes, goes to this island, and this island is literally so whimsical. They go through these fun challenges. The author who invited her is so kooky and weird. It's literally Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but with books. It is such a fun little whimsical story, and I highly recommend this book if you like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and you're just wanting a whimsical, fun read. You're rooting for this character. It's so heartfelt. It is such a feel-good story, and I absolutely love this book. That's all the recommendations that I have for you guys today. As always, thank you so much for your support. It means the world. If you like this video, consider subscribing, and I hope these reads just give you that fun springtime feeling that you were looking for. Till next time.
Psst. Click here for a surprise.